Welcome back to another video. I'm here with Ricky Sachs, the king of transfer rumours. We will be talking about who will be signing for Tottenham and who will be leaving. Ricky, first of all, out of contract, Toby Alderweireld, Christian Eriksen and Jan Vertonghen at the end of this season.
Yep.
Do you see any of them leaving in January?
Well, I think Christian Eriksen's a player that, as we know, we want to try and move on. I think with Spurs, the situation with Eriksen is that he doesn't want to play for the football club. I think it's been clear for Mourinho that if he was going to be a big-time player, you would have seen him start against Manchester United. He would have started against Wolves at the weekend. And I think for Spurs now with Eriksen, I think it's now just trying to attract any kind of fee they possibly can in January. With Toby Alderweireld, I mean, I would like to think the club and maybe Mourinho is fairly optimistic that he will sign a new contract. When you look at the fact that over the last 2 or 3 seasons, I think it's been well known with Mourinho managing Manchester United and even at Chelsea, he was courting this player on a regular basis and wanted to sign him. So I think Jose Mourinho will want to see Toby Alderweireld sign a new contract. With Jan Vertonghen, I think there's always been this issue with Jan that there's always been a contract, I think, that's been on the table for Jan. It's always been a case of just how long that contract was going to be. And I think Jan, in an ideal world, would want more than 12 months. I think with Spurs and their policy of the over 30s, I think they don't really want to offer Jan any more than 12 months. So I think in reality, I would suggest that Toby Alderweireld looks more likely to sign a contract at this present stage than Jan Vertonghen. But of course, as we know with Spurs, things can always change.
So in February, do you think that all 3 of them will still be here?
I think of Eriksen that in his mind, he wants to run down that contract and be able to leave and get a signing on fee elsewhere, especially for his agent as well. Let's make it very, very clear that for a player, when you run down your contract and you move elsewhere, the agent gets a big fee as well as the player. So it suits Christian Eriksen to leave at the end of his contract rather than leave in January. But I think for Tottenham, Spurs will want to try and attract a fee. Listen, it's Daniel Levy.
Of course.
He's going to want to attract the fee for that player. But I know with Toby Alderweireld, I would like to think I'm confident that a deal will be agreed, because if it isn't, I mean, they haven't really got much longer left to negotiate. And as we know with players, I think from January onwards, you know, they can start to negotiate with foreign clubs. So it's definitely an interest really for Spurs to try and tie down Toby Alderweireld if they can. And Jan Vertonghen, I think that's one to keep an eye on. Now,
if Christian Eriksen did leave in January, do you think it would be to an overseas club rather than a club like Manchester United in the Premier League?
Well, I think what's very interesting, we saw Daniel Levy make a statement or talked to the Standard Sport, and he was clear in his message that he doesn't feel frightened by selling Christian Eriksen to a rival in the Premier League. Now, as a fan, that concerns me because, Chris, as you know, for Spurs, when we saw Mourinho come in, it was all about trying to become that next big club, as in try and really push for the Premier League, the Champions League. And what would concern me is that Spurs will look to try and strengthen a rival. Now, you could argue, with Eriksen's last 12 months, are we really strengthening a rival the way he's been playing? So I would like to see Christian Eriksen move abroad. I think Eriksen, as I think we've known as Spurs fans, has always kind of had a vision in his mind that he's always wanted to go to a Real Madrid, go to a Barcelona. I think he sees himself playing overseas. I would just maybe question whether Eriksen is really good enough consistently to play for Real Madrid or play for a Barcelona. So I could see him ending up at a Man United. It would not surprise me whatsoever. And as a Spurs fan, that doesn't fill me with great optimism selling to a direct rival, as I didn't want that for Toby Alderweireld at the time when he was linked with Manchester United. But we're at a point now, I think, where Daniel, he will look to try and get the most amount of money possible. And he wouldn't be scared, as we know, to sell him to a direct rival.
What sort of money would we sell Eriksen for if we did sell him in January? What sort of money would Tottenham get?
Are we basing it on his current form or are we basing it on the last 5-6 years?
Good question.
If it's based on his current form, I think we'd be lucky to, 20-25 million. You talk about a player, in reality, he's got 6 months left on his contract, even less when it comes to January. What is the enticement of a club going to Christian Eriksen now rather than waiting 6 months?
Well, there could be a number of clubs in for him, but I'm not so sure. But Victor Wanyama, he's been linked with a number of clubs.
Is he still here?
He's still
he's
here.
a competition winner.
Is Victor Wanyama still going to be at Tottenham?
I would like to think, I think Victor for himself needs a move. I think he will be a player that's going to look likely to leave the club. You know, Hertha Berlin, again, have shown an interest in the player. They were very keen on getting a deal done for him in the summer. Never materialised. And as we know, Wanyama on that final day, he had a move ready to go. And on the last minute, he pulled it. Apparently it wasn't enough money. I think Spurs were frustrated because Wanyama was never a long-term player in terms of after the previous summer. I think they were ready to kind of let the player go. So in terms of Wanyama, I would be quietly confident we would see him go in January. He's not like the other contract situations where they're ticking down in terms of 3-4 months. He's still got, I believe, 1.5 years, 2 years left on his contract. And I think Spurs will look to try and get a similar fee to what was agreed in the summer, which I'm led to believe was around the 11.5 to 12 million figure.
Now, Danny Rose's contract is up in the summer of 2021. Do you see him leaving in January or any other players in the Tottenham squad?
Well, just on Danny Rose, I think us as a show, the last previous 3-4 seasons, we were massive fans of Danny. I was personally,
absolutely.
We always made that joke with Jason that he gets it. And, Danny is one of those players, and we've said it before, because in a derby, Chelsea, Arsenal, West Ham, he's one of the first players you want on that team sheet for what he shows.
Yeah.
The problem with Danny is that his form has so badly deteriorated that now for us as supporters, I don't think we want to see him anywhere near the first team. And that's a really sad thing to say because, Danny himself has been one of those that had to come off social media due to negativity he received. So I would think with Danny, he's made it very, very clear for him that don't ask him if he's leaving in January because I'm not going to go anywhere. But I think for Spurs and for Danny, as I've said numerous times, he needs a refresh. There needs to be a new start for Danny. And again, it's one of those situations where if a club is of interest to Danny, I'm sure he'd have to consider that. But you have to ask yourself, for Danny and his age, what club is going to entice him to leave when he's already said that he knows he's working under one of the best managers in Jose Mourinho? But surely you would think it will come down to game time. But if he's not going to get the game time, what's the point of staying?
But he said a number of times to journalists, I will leave when my contract expires in the summer of 2021. He nearly joined Watford last summer.
But as we understand, I think that was Danny's decision to come away from those talks, to actually leave that club without an agreement. Tottenham wanted that move to go ahead. Let's make it very, very clear. Daniel has been trying to get Danny Rose out, as Danny said himself, the board want to see Danny go.
Yeah.
Danny is adamant he's going to stay. I think Danny is doing that in a way, let's be honest about it, to try and spite Daniel Levy. He wants to run down that contract, get all his money and then go. But I think for Danny himself, from a playing perspective, I think Danny needs that fresh start. So it will all depend on really the clubs that come in for him. And you've got to ask yourself, if a club the level of Watford, and that's no disrespect to Watford, will Danny want to go? Well, we saw in the summer, Chris. He didn't want to go, did he?
Yeah.
So, and no offence to Danny, he's not at a point now where a Man City or a Man United or a Chelsea are going to come in for him. He's not good enough. He really, really isn't. And I think when you look back at the Kyle Walker situation, I think Danny is still frustrated that he didn't get the move over Kyle to a top club, where at that point Danny was playing really, really well.
Do you see any other Tottenham players moving from the club in January, though?
Well, I would think Jack Clark, as we know, one that's on at loan Leeds, I think he'll probably come back to the football club and will probably go back out on loan to get regular first-team football. I mean, 1-4's an interesting one. Jose has been speaking recently in the fact that he said, I can kill it right now. 1-4 will not be leaving the football club. But it will be interesting with game time. Again, Ryan Sessegnon, another player. We've only seen him in, nominally featured under Jose Mourinho. Apart from that, I mean, who else can I think of? I don't really see too many leaving the football club. I think the summer's going to be very, very interesting. As I think we all know, just to be very clear, January is always a panic window, regardless if you've got Jose Mourinho in charge or Mauricio Pochettino. I do think, personally, there'll be one or two arrivals. I think Mourinho will want to bring an extra two in because where we sit now, in terms of being a couple of points off that top four, I think the position we're in now, 100%, Tottenham will want to try and bring in that one or two. As we know, he's already ended interest in Bruno Fernandes. I don't see him coming, but there's been a lot of talk today with Eze from QPR, a young player. I mean, for me personally, I want to see Troy Parrott being given an opportunity as a backup to Harry Kane. There's been a lot of talk, in the terms of the papers that because he had Dzeko come in. I mean,
I was going to ask about Troy Parrott because Troy Parrott, Oliver Skipp, Kyle Walker-Peters. Do you see any of these players going out on loan?
Well, Kyle Walker-Peters for me needs regular game time. I think Kyle Walker-Peters himself, what I feel Spurs have done not so well is managed his progression to that first team. It's been, again, stop-start, especially under Pochettino. He had a couple of games in and he was taken out and then you didn't really see much of him. And 100%, I think definitely Kyle Walker-Peters needs a loan move. The same as Jack Clark. It'll be interesting to see again in the summer when it comes if these players are in Jose Mourinho's long-term plans. I mean, Harry Winks is another one for me. It will be interesting between now and the end of the season to see how many minutes he gets. We've got Sissoko, Tungi and Dembele, and I think it's definitely worth bringing up Giovanni Lo Celso. I think this player, Spurs, as we know, I think 14 million was originally we paid for him in the summer.
Yeah.
Hasn't really had much game time. When you compare it to the rest of the other midfielders we've got in terms of Sissoko, Ndombele, Harry Winks, Dele Alli, Heung-min Son, he's barely been given much game time to impress Mourinho. And what I am slightly concerned about already is that he's made his mind up on Lo Celso. And we've only, Mourinho's only been in the role for the last month or so. So Lo Celso's one to keep an eye on. I think you still need to give him at least 10 or 11 matches to be able to make a judgment on someone. He's adapting to a new league, as we've seen with Ndombele. And I think it's too early at the moment to make a call whether he's good enough. But there is also, I think, the chairman or the president of Real Betis has said, it's looking likely that Spurs will agree a fee for him to join the club in January. So one to keep an eye on.
Now, in your opinion, Rick, what positions do Tottenham really need to improve on and have good backup for? So who do we need to bring in? What positions are we looking for?
I think what's been an issue, and we've spoken about it numerous times, Chris, off air, and obviously during our shows as well, we do is definitely the fullbacks. I think we look at the moment, I think that's really the difference that's taking Tottenham from a top four club or attempting to get into that top four to really pushing on to become, a club that can challenge for the league. I think you look at Liverpool with their fullbacks, the likes of Robertson, Gomez in there. I mean, they've got some really top quality fullbacks, and that's why Liverpool are sitting towards the top of the league. The same way City are sitting towards the top of the league when they've got Kyle Walker in there, and they've got some really top fullbacks. And Spurs need to do the same. They need to go out there and significantly invest in that area. Because you look at Tottenham's front players, Ali, Son, Moura, Kane. The top four is not the
Very
problem.
impressive.
The front four at the pitch, and even midfield to some degree, when Ndombele in there, Sissoko. We've got some really good players midfield-wise. I think if Spurs can shore up their defence, then we've got every chance. And centre-back's another issue. Nathan Ake's one. I think definitely bringing him into conversation. Nathan Ake is a left-sided centre-back. That's a position Tottenham have really identified carefully, because that's why Ben Davies, I believe, re-signed a new contract, because Ben Davies can play that left-sided centre-back role like he did for Wales. And I think that's a key decision as to why Spurs gave him that 5-year contract, not because just Ben is Mr. Dependable or reliable, it's because he can play the left side of a defence. And when you've got the futures of Alderweireld and Vertonghen to some degree up in the air, that's why Ben was given that contract.
If I was to ask you a question, how much money do you think that Tottenham will spend in January? Do you think there is money available to Mourinho?
Well, 100%. Listen, let's make it very, very clear. Maurizio Pochettino left with a compensation fee. As we understand it, that compensation is still being paid off by Tottenham. Jose Mourinho has been brought in, and I'm led to believe, allegedly, he's on the second highest salary in either the world or the UK, which again is remarkable for a club of Tottenham's standards to be paying that to Jose Mourinho. So when you say there's money available, well, if we've got the money to pay out Pochettino, the money to give Mourinho, you may say all the money's gone, but you could also argue Spurs are a wealthy club. I mean, look at our top 10, look where Tottenham are in the top 10 richest clubs in the world.
But bearing in mind, we didn't spend a penny for 500 days.
That's true, but also, I mean, what I would say on that point is that I think this is where Pochettino himself let him down, because I think it was widely known that during that time, he was offered players. Maybe they weren't the top of the list that he wanted, but he was offered players and he refuted them. He said, no, I'm happy with this squad. And listen, they maybe not were the exact players he wanted, but as you know, when you go into transfer talks or with people out there, you have a list of your targets. On that list, you have A, B and C. If you can't get him, you go to him. And that was widely known that during that period of 300 or 500 days, there were players on that list that Spurs could have brought to the football club, and Pochettino simply didn't want them. So it's difficult. I think there will be money to spend in January. I think there'll be more to spend, in the summer. I don't like January as a window. I know I love transfers, but I think in the summer is the time to spend money.
Because me as a Tottenham fan, Rick, what I really worry about, and you said it earlier, with the forward line, I'm not worried about that at all, but the defensive line, Toby and Yan being out of contract, you've got Danny Rose being out of contract in the summer of 21, you've got Serge Aurier, who really, you don't know what Serge Aurier is turning up from game to game.
Course, yeah.
It is a worry, the defence, isn't it?
Massive worry. I think that's what's stopping Tottenham from really achieving success. When you look at the games we've had, the Cup semi-finals, Champions League final, it's individual errors that have cost Tottenham. And it's mostly been in the back line. Let's be honest about it. And I think until Spurs really go and reinforce that defence, they're always going to be in a situation where they're just going to fall a bit short. But the key now is Jose Mourinho's in charge, and Jose Mourinho's a winner, and he's ruthless. And if you're not good enough, you ain't playing.
Now, lastly, I want the names of the players Tottenham are signing in January.
Oh my God! Dear.
Who are Tottenham being linked to? Now,
players.
if you don't follow Ricky on Twitter, Rick's at Rick Spur. Ricky is the king of transfer talk, and Rick, who are we being rumoured with? Who are we being linked with? Who are we going to be signing?
Yeah, well, I think I've mentioned quite a few of those players. I mean, Nathan Ake's one that's been spoken about. Whether Bournemouth will be prepared to let him go mid-season again is debatable. Edin Dzeko as a potential backup to Harry Kane. I mean, again, I wouldn't be massively on that, because for me, I want to see Troy Parrott being given minutes. I mean, another name that's been linked, which I don't see happening because of his release clause, is Koulibaly of Napoli. I mean, I think he's got a ridiculous €130 million release clause. I don't see how Tottenham can match that. So, I mean, there's been talk again, as we mentioned earlier today, that Eze from QPR is a player being linked, a young player. Would he be good enough for the first team? I don't quite know yet. Again, I think I might pronounce this quite wrong. Paris Saint-Germain fullback Kurzawa, I think. You can Google this.
You said it.
You can Google this. Yeah, I'm glad I said it. I'm getting pelts after this. A player being linked, again, a fullback. So, to put my neck out there, I would think Spurs, we may see a fullback arrive. I think we may see a fullback arrive. But definitely, I think the summer will be where you see Spurs do most of their business. I think what will be interesting this window is who can Tottenham get out. Can they get Christian Eriksen out? Can they get Victor Wanyama out? And I think that's very much the key here, that Mourinho is looking to trim the bloated squad.
Yeah.
He's looking to trim that bloated squad down. So when it comes to the summer, Spurs are ready to go. And I've got to say one thing, Liverpool's recruitment. Now, in the past, they were laughed at when Brendan Rodgers were there for not getting deals done. They've announced their first transfer already, and it's not even January opening. That's exactly what Spurs need to be doing already. Going out there, canvassing the market, getting the players Mourinho wants, because I believe Mourinho coming to the club, he will know the kind of players he wants that are going to improve this team.
Now, Mauricio Pochettino always signed up-and-coming players, rising stars.
Yep.
Is that the type of player that Mourinho is going to sign, or is he going to sign proven players?
I think Mourinho generally, I mean, whilst we are seeing this kind of, in a way, persona that he's going to give youth a chance, I think for Jose Mourinho, it's very much about bringing in players that are ready to win. Bringing in players that, in their mind, are already coming in with a winner's mentality that want to take Tottenham to that next level. So I think for Spurs now, as a club they are, I think it's been great seeing players come through, but it's very important as a club you make a statement. And Spurs made a statement by getting Jose Mourinho. Therefore, I don't think you can follow a statement of signing Jose Mourinho up with bringing in players aren't ready to win. So my answer would be they need to go and sign winners.
That sounds expensive.
It sounds expensive, but it's time to be big, Chris, isn't it? It's time to be bold. Dare is to do.
Prediction in the Premier League this season, will Tottenham finish top 4?
I think we'll just sneak into the top 4 at Chelsea's expense. And Jody Morris should be worried.
Ricky, thank you very much. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.